it so that I don't clip. Hey, yep, up. There we go. Now I am recording. I'm also going to make sure my stuff is off. Now I will downsize Pro Tools.
So I called the episode Pythagorean Tuning. Is that the title we would want to go with?
We can always switch it later, because I guess we have to sort of describe it in a way. That's the hard thing I was thinking about, is I don't want it to sound like a history episode, you know what I mean? Even though it is, or a musicology thing. It's almost like figuring out why we sing the notes we sing, you know what I mean? And why do they sound good and all that stuff. So I have no idea. Well, I'll think about it, but you can think about it too, you know, after you hear the whole spiel.
Okay.
It's like, is music invented, or is it something that we, like, is the music we sing today invented, or is it, you know, something that we've always had pretty much, and
right.
There's cool things about it.
Okay, I'm gonna call it Who Invented Music.
Yes, that is good.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay, yeah. So I'm ready to go whenever. We'll just fucking do your introduction and do what you will, and I'll just sort of try to weave my way in.
All right. Cool. Okay, just let me share the old thing here. I should do it from the actual page. I'm getting better at navigating this fucking business. Man, oh, speaking of swearing, have you seen the history of swear words? Oh, we can talk about this on the show.
Oh, yes, yeah. I would like to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I know who is the host of it.
Oh, okay, that's pretty much all I wanted to.
I haven't seen it. Ooh, 1 second.
Take that, YouTube.
So I actually need a guitar for this.
Oh yeah, should I turn my keyboard on? I'll turn my keyboard on. Got this handy dandy keyboard right here.
The problem is I don't know how to get my keyboard into my one signal. You know, I'm just using my whatchamacallit, audio from like Windows or whatever. I don't have my acoustic, so I'll just use this.
I can hear that quite well through your microphone.
Okay. Yeah, it's you know what I'll do though? At the same time, I'm gonna record my direct in tone for.
Yeah, good idea.
For this.
Yeah.
And that way, you know, you may just go with the mic tone, or you may not, you know.
Yeah.
Why is Pro Tools blank? Close. No, that's still there. It's like dragged off.
Yeah.
Oh. I hate computers so much, especially after losing that data. It's just like, man, I'm so done with computers. Spent so much time with it. I got a new CPU fan.
That's good.
What? You should. I looked. This is one thing. So I looked it up online. CPU fans apparently aren't always supposed to be running, so I didn't break my CPU fan. I should send you, or you should clean your CPU fan, because then it'll stop making noise.
Oh, you think that's what's making all the noise?
That'll be one of the things. Depends on.
Like, listen, if I turn my preamp up one notch from here, do you hear that?
No.
Maybe because you got
the gate.
Oh, there's a gate. Yeah. Hold on. Check this out. Ready? No?
No, I don't hear. That's good that we don't hear it.
Huh, weird. Well, I'm hearing it. It's really, really noisy. Yeah, my signal chain's real noisy for some reason right now.
What type of noise is it? Like, is it like?
When I turn up my pre past 40, it's like it's a high white noise.
Oh.
I know
yeah,
there's some
wonder-
there's some hum just from my PC tower and stuff. Just like a gonna hum, but like, yeah, this preamp. I don't know if I wonder if it's something with it. I could switch pre's and see, but it's so involved. But anyways,
Whatever, right?
it's that analog love, you know. Okay, you ready to rock and roll?
I'm just gonna tune this.
Okay.
And then I will be super ready. I'm gonna have to actually sit further back just because I have a guitar. Actually, maybe shimmy in a little bit more.
Yeah.
I figure my tuning should be good if we're doing an episode that's primarily about tuning. We should also do an episode where we talk about like guitar stuff. Like I'd love to do an episode about talking about like how to hit a guitar and stuff.
Yeah, well, when we have Nathan on, we could
That would be great.
talk about that. And I mean, he's like super into the Helix. I think he's like an actual like Line 6 ambassador or something.
See if we can get us some sponsorship.
See if he can teach me how to like make good tones.
Yeah.
Yo, I got a Pure Mix subscription.
Ah.
They had a 50% off sale, so I
Okay.
picked it
How
up.
much is it a year?
169 after the sale. 169 US.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's like $10 a month or whatever, $12 a month.
Oh, I fucking put it to E.
Just trying to get better at mixing, man. It's a whole thing.
It seems like a frustrating endeavor.
Yeah,
Fucking
it
just
sucks,
are
but it's
all
also
wrong
cool
shit.
as cool as hell. Just getting back into just using the stock Pro Tools EQ.
Really?
A lot of guys use it, man. Andrew Sheps is a big. He's got it all over his sessions.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a tool, you know, like
Yeah.
I haven't with EQs. I've never, once again, I haven't mixed enough. I haven't ever been like, ooh, this EQ, you know, like.
No,
I'm not
EQ is like the
experienced
secret. It's the secret sauce. Like I have no idea. I mean, I have an idea, but like, I also have no idea how to use it. You know?
Like, I wonder if someone who was the ultimate EQ person could just do it all with the stock EQ, or if they'd be like, no, I like having these EQs too, you know, like.
It seems to me that based on the research I've done, that like any like subtractive EQ where you're trying to reduce problematic frequencies, people are using the digital like Pro Tools stock EQ or like the digital, like one of the nice digital ones, like the Fab Filter or the Oxford or whatever. And then when they want to boost stuff, that's when they use the analog stuff.
The good stuff.
Yeah. Analog
yeah.
modeled stuff, or they do the real analog. Like I was watching a CLA video where he's mixing through a console, and he just like on every track he just turns the top knob of the EQ up all the way. Like he's just boosting 16 dBs of top on like every channel. Yeah, because it's analog, I guess. Because it's analog, it doesn't really ever sound harsh. You can just reef it and it still sounds good. But plugins, you fucking can't do that. Well, I can hear your tone now. That's good.
Oh, you can hear my tone, really?
I think so, unless you're
Oh, that's just the
direct
I'll,
guitar in the interface.
yeah.
It's still useful.
yeah.
I can hear that though. That's good.
Okay, so I'll record both of these bad boys. Let me just make sure it's. Christ.
It's fine.
Okay, good enough for me. Good
Yeah.
enough for rock and roll.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it's not going to flip. Actually, might. Cool.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Let me hit the record button and we'll get down to business.
All right.
Okay, I am recording.
Alrighty. As am I. Here's a clap on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Now, did you clap on 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4?
1, 2, 3, clap. Is that what you did? Okay. Yes, 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 yes. What's up? We're back. It's the Music Guy Podcast, singing you a little major scale at the beginning there. How was that? My name's Al Rowe. I'm a music guy. I write songs, I sing, I make records, I play guitar. Coming at you from the beaches, just east of downtown Toronto here in southern Ontario, Canada. Happy to be back with you for another episode of this fine internet radio program. Joining me on the line, all the way from Whitby, Ontario, as far east as east goes, Mr. Michael Hebbs.
Hey.
What's going on in your world this week, my man?
Sorry, I was clipping there. Not playing guitar, but in my world, absolutely nothing. It's Groundhog Day, or that new Amazon show, which is Groundhog Day, but it's Andy Samberg and some girl. I feel like Groundhog Day would be better with like a companion, you know? I have a dog, so you know
that counts.
It just sounds really sad.
What did I want to tell you about? Oh yeah, we started watching this thing called The History of Swear Words.
I know, with Nick Cage, right?
Nick Cage, your man, Nick Cage, is the host. He's so good in it.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's great.
A lot of things.
It's like not that good. Like it's a bit of a fluffy show in general. Like it's kind of just supposed to be funny and somewhat interesting, and it is that. But yeah, Nick Cage with a beard.
Nick Cage is a sometimes great actor and sometimes really, really, really bad, and that's why I love him. You know, like it's not just because he is capable of being bad, but it's also because he's capable of being good, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think he's great.
Commits 100%, whether or not it's absolute horseshit.
Yeah.
Also, I love that Leonardo DiCaprio didn't have an Oscar for the longest time, and Nick Cage did.
Leonardo DiCaprio, spoiler alert, Leonardo DiCaprio, second most F-bombs in movies of any actor or actress. Yeah. I think he was number 2 or number 3. I think it was number 2.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Leo.
So anyways, here we are. Thanks for joining us. It's a brand new year here. Is this our first new episode of the year?
I have no idea.
I think it is,
Probably.
right?
Yeah, I think so. 2021.
2021, baby.
Baby.
Yeah. So we're psyched to be here. We're psyched for the year to come, and we're gonna have a lot of interesting stuff happening this year. We're gonna be starting to announce some new stuff. Not this episode, but maybe in the next handful. So hang around for that. If you want to support the show, for now, all you could do is use word of mouth. Give us good reviews on your podcast platform of choice, Apple Podcasts, perhaps. Some of them 5-star reviews. That's always helpful. And if you'd like to ask a question, send it to us, musicguypodcast@gmail.com, or reach out to either of us on social media. If you'd like to send us a song,
things on Instagram, that's a good one as well.
Yeah, exactly. And if you'd like to submit a song, believe it or not, we do play music on this music podcast. We like to get people's original stuff out there, especially if you're an independent artist. Hit us up, send us an MP3. maybe compliment my hair or Mike's hair or something, and we'll put it on. So that's sort of all the housekeeping that we have for today. We got a big, sort of deep, juicy topic here. I'm gonna just flip it right over to you, Mike. You've prepared a little presentation for us.
That's exactly how I would have said it.
Yeah.
It is a juicy topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit us up.
So today is I guess it's like our new way of doing things. We're going to have interviews and we're going to have sort of presentation style episodes. We'll still have like ones where me and Al are chilling, but this is a little bit more structured than, me and Al just being like, hey, what about, the coup in America? Like the coup attempt in America.
Oh, jeez.
Fun times.
I didn't.
But that's for.
I didn't really see that. I just kind of read a news article about it.
It's a mess. 2021 is just,
Yeah.
it's looking really good. But so this presentation, I guess, is about where music comes from, like music.
Yeah.
That we do today.
Who invented it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Who invented it? And obviously, I'm not a musicologist. I'm not a historian. I'm not Dan Carlin, but I was inspired by Dan Carlin's podcast. What's it called? Hardcore History.
Oh, yeah.
And just how he does things. So he takes 8 months to do one episode, but he references letters and books that he's read about it and just a bunch of stuff. But so if we wanted a full picture, we'd need hours and hours and hours, and we'd need someone who actually knows what they're doing. But I still thought it was an interesting subject. So anyway, so when you and I play or sing music, Al, or when Billie Eilish sings or writes music or plays music, she plays ukulele, I believe, or Hank Williams, that old country singer from the 40s, when he wrote and sang music, we use the major scale. So say, for instance, it's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do thing, right? And some people would argue and say, well, not everything is in a major key. But when you think about it, the minor scale is just the major scale in a different order. So say, for instance, that's a B major scale, actually, because I'm tuned down a half step. But so say, for instance, the notes of C major are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But if we start on A and rearrange those notes, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, then we get the minor scale. And those are sort of the two keys. There's no other thing than major and minor. Now, there is extended harmony, what's that scale? The half whole scale and all that. But that's coming from a diminished chord, which is coming from the harmonic minor scale, which is coming from the major scale. So in every sense, everything is coming from the major scale. So where did that come from? That's kind of the thing that I was thinking about. So why would someone like Hank Williams, why would someone like Billie Eilish use this scale to write music or sing music? Is it because they grew up with a theory background? Is it because they grew up listening to music that use the scale, which is certain because all Western music does? Now, that's not to get confused with Eastern music. Eastern music doesn't. I don't really know a lot about Eastern music, hence why I'm not a musicologist. But this is specifically about the music that we listen to on the radio, like country, rock, pop. I mean, what other styles of music are on the radio? Indie,
hip hop.
Hip hop. It all
mumble
uses
rap.
the major scale. Yeah. So all of this stuff uses the major scale.
EDM.
Yeah, and why does this happen? I have no fucking idea, and I don't know if anyone does for sure, but they probably know more than me. So the notes themselves we choose to sing today, I think, are in a sense invented. So say, for instance, an A note, its frequency is 440 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
I don't why did we decide that? It could be 445 hertz. It could be 800 hertz. But someone decided that A is 440. So what we're going to talk about today won't definitively answer these questions, but it'll point out some things. So for starters, before we get into this, I'm referencing a few videos and one Wikipedia article, I believe. So YouTube channel Discover Math's Pythagorean tuning video, Pythagorean, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And then YouTube channel the Manil Collections, Pythagoras Music of the Spheres, that video. And then there's another channel called 2-Minute Music Theories, and the video is Mesopotamian Music Theory. So we'll link those all in the show notes because they definitely go into more detail. I kind of cherry pick things from them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we'll actually talk about the inventor of
Right.
music.
Okay. So sorry, just to back it up just slightly.
Yeah.
So there's a major scale of notes. Most people familiar with that. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Those notes are each a specific frequency, and
Yeah.
as you will know from like tuning guitar or whatever, it's like you're playing your E and it's like, oh, that's flat or that's sharp, and you tune it up into the middle and like then it's in tune. Why is that in tune? Why is that considered in tune? That's the question that you're kind of asking, right?
You know, because you can hear when it's not in tune. There's another video actually we're going to put in the show notes of something using a different tuning system, and it sounds out of tune.
Right.
Even though it's a different tuning system, and it still has logic behind it. So it's kind of hard
and there's a lot. I mean, so I got this Peterson tuner recently.
Yes.
And that it's got a ton of settings on it for like quote unquote sweetened tunings for different types of instruments. And I messed around with the acoustic one because I play acoustic mostly, and apparently it comes from James Taylor
seen that video.
detuning his acoustic slightly and incrementally, such that each string beyond the highest string was slightly flatter than it should be, quote unquote, and then it actually resulted in this sort of warmer, better sound, I guess. I tried it out; it didn't sound good to me. But there's a lot of people trying
you thought it sounded bad, eh? Or you just
it didn't work for me.
notice it?
I've heard it.
Yeah.
I've heard that there's certain sweetened tunings that really help instruments that have intonation problems or like structural problems with the instrument because it's super old or whatever. So that's a whole thing. But anyways, what we're trying to figure out is like, why did we decide that A is 440 and therefore all the other notes are otherwise?
Well, and also too, the major scale. Like, why do we sing things within the major scale?
Yeah,
So, say for
right.
instance, like what are melodies? We could go on. We could do an entire episode where you would list melodies, and then I would relate them back to the major scale.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, let's
you
do
have
that.
a particular
Yeah.
melody in mind? Yeah. What's a particular melody?
The long and winding road that leads to your door.
Does that start on 2?
I don't know.
Not 5. It's something like that. Long and winding road. Right? So you were singing the key of G there. It starts on 5. So it starts on D.
I think it would be a C sharp after that.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
if I'm playing correctly, long and winding road, that's in the key of G major, right?
No,
So
I think
starts
it's
on
in B. I
5.
think it's in B minor.
Sing it again. I can't hear your piano.
Oh, you can't hear my
through here.
piano? Oh shit. Okay, we're gonna.
What's going on?
Hold on. Let me just crank it up. You got that now?
A little bit louder?
No.
Still not really getting it.
The long and winding road.
Long and
So D, C sharp, A, F sharp, B.
oh, long and winding road.
Yeah, there you go.
For some reason, yeah. So it is in B minor then.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was hearing long and winding road. So that B minor scale is just the D major scale in a different order, right? You're starting on the B, and then you're moving on to the notes of the scale.
Right. So that first note of the melody is, the D from D major.
Yep. So it would be, if you were comparing it to the major scale, it would be 6. Sorry, yeah, no, it would be
It'd
1,
be 1. Yeah.
and then 7, and then 6. So
Yeah.
it's the the first note of the major scale, the 7th note of the major scale, and the 6th note of the major scale.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, we could keep going with that. That's how I figure things out by tune.
And
By
that's the thing, is we do that all the time when we're learning songs or learning chord progressions. We're always thinking about, okay, what is this chord relative to the major key that it's in? Even if it's in a minor key, I'm still always relating it back to that major key. Yeah. Cool.
If you wanted to listen to something that didn't relate to the major scale, you can listen to 12-tone music, Schoenberg, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that, but you could almost argue that that's made in response to major scales, right?
Yes.
Like taking the major scale, and he's almost like, well, everything's written with this. Why don't I write something that isn't? And if you listen to it, to me, I don't like it. You know?
Yeah, well, that was like a very, wasn't that a very sort of representational way of writing music? When
I don't know what representational
well, he
means.
was like, if you're playing in C major, like you're never playing C sharp, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
how can we write music in a way where like all 12 tones are
I see,
equally
yes.
represented? But anyways, it sounds bizarre, right? So why is it that our ears were drawn to this major scale, and then music kind of just went forth with pretty much only that and nothing else?
Well, people without training too. That's what they sing. You know, someone who's never played a scale in their life.
Yeah.
You know, they sing, and it's like, well, why? So to understand this a bit better, we have to talk about Pythagoras. And have you heard of Pythagoras?
I've heard of the Pythagorean theorem, where the triangle. I'm already don't know what it is. Wait, hold on.
I had to look it up as
the
well.
hypotenuse
Something about that. Yep.
is equal to. Shoot. Is it the sum of the square root of each side or something?
I think you're right. I don't know. I really don't remember algebra, but the formula, as I wrote down in my notes, is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if you know two sides of the triangle, you can figure out the other one, right?
There you go. Right.
That's something we've all been taught. We all know him as like the math guy, math nerd. But he was also a philosopher. I feel like I read that he also did music as well. I might be wrong on that. But to him, like music, philosophy, and all that stuff, it's all the same shit. And same with math. It's all the same shit. So he was born like 2,500 years ago. So it's a long time ago. Interestingly enough about this math guy is he should have a podcast.
Yeah.
The Math Guy.
The Math Guy podcast.
But he's not confirmed to exist. But or he could have been multiple people. None of his writings himself survived, but his students have written about the things that he taught and have referred to him. So another thing, they're even unsure whether he had actual students. He may have had a cult or a club, so like followers, which is weird. Or maybe it was somewhere in between, like a math cult club, which sounds really funny.
Sounds like I'd be into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because they had like ethics rules. Like, you know, they were strict vegetarians. They lived communally. So it's pretty culty.
Right.
But yeah, the big point is math, religion, music, and philosophy are all the same thing. And you'll see this. I'm not going to talk about this now, but if you're into this sort of thing, in the Music of the Spheres video, they have like a theory about, you know, how the planets harmonize with each other, like musically. And it's a weird thing. But like other, I feel like he was an astrologist, have like, you know, hundreds of years later, still used that theory. So anyways, enough about Pythagoras, enough about shit that we don't care about. How he contributed to, you know, the major scale and music that we do today is he figured out tuning. So which is what notes should be what pitches or frequencies. And in a way, he figured out the major scale by doing this. So story goes, he was passing by a blacksmith shop. Dude was making things, you know, with metal and hammers. He heard the hammers producing the different pitches and noticed that the hammers were of different sizes and weights. And then he figured out that the bigger hammers made a deeper sound and the smaller hammers made a higher sound, which are observations that everyone would have made at that point, right? But he decided to go home and he took a bunch of strings of different sizes, just like the hammers, right? And he messed about. And what he realized were that the different ratios of the strings to each other could produce pleasing sounds, right? So not just, oh yeah, this is higher, this is lower, but say for instance, if this string is this ratio to that string, when I play them together, they don't sound like shit.
Mhm.
So all of this stuff that I just mentioned there is from that Discover Maths Pythagoras tuning video. It's also in the Music of the Spheres thing. That's
So,
gonna be
for
in the show
example, if one string was twice as long as another, that would be an octave difference, right?
Yes. Yeah, and that sounds pleasing.
Right.
You know? So say, for instance, that was exactly what I was just about to say. The ratios that he found to be like the most pleasing were if you cut a string in half, or the opposite, if you double a string, you get an octave. Or if you cut a string and at the 2/3 point, that 2/3 point, you get a perfect fifth. So say, for instance, the octave was this, and together, they sound good. I'm not in tune. But if you cut a string at 2/3 point, you get a fifth,
Right.
and those sound good together. And if you cut a string at a 3/4 point, which I'm probably not using the right terminology for that, you get a fourth. And those sounded good.
Yes.
Together. Like, you have to understand at this point, I'm sure they had instruments. I don't know what the tuning systems were for those, right?
Mm.
Because, like, say for instance, in the case of this, those notes don't sound that great together because they're not in tune.
Yeah.
If I fix that, that's a bit better. It's not perfect, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a bit better. So if we took an instrument and we could only play these three notes, we get like a basic sort of key structure, right? So that would be the 1, and that would be the 4, and that would be the 5. And that's not really like enough to make music with, you
Mhm.
know? So
But it's interesting you
the
should
next-
say that, because as soon as you played those notes that you just played in the way that you just played them, to me that had like a medieval almost feel to it.
yeah,
You know, if you composed a song with just 1, 4, and 5 in the octaves of those, oh, you're in B.
yeah.
You know, it has that kind of like very like
It's
early human history kind of vibe to it in a way. So maybe that has something to do with what you're talking about.
Well, and so there was a cool video, and maybe I'll find it for the show notes, but it was a guy singing some of the earliest music, and it's funny. It almost sounds more like harmonic minor, which is bizarre. That's a whole nother thing. But so the next step he took from here to get more notes was he took that initial note, and I think I'm playing, but really I'm playing a B. So I'll play a C. This is a C here. And then he took one of these intervals and continued with it. So say, for instance, he took a string, and then he cut it in to 2/3, and then he lined it up with that. And so we had the original string, another string that was 2/3 of that string, and you get a fifth, right? So you get C, you get G, and he continued that process. So from G, you get D, and from D, you get A, and then from A, you get E, and then from E, you get B.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, you get B. So all of that together, like, it's not really... It's not like you couldn't really make music with that, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
too spread out.
Right.
But if you line up all those notes within one octave, so in the case of the next note that would be available in the octave would be a D, and the next note that would be available in the octave would be an an E, and the next note that would be available would be a G, and then an A, and then a B. So you get that, right? So that's almost the major scale. For some reason, he decided to get one more note. So instead of being like, this is going to be 6-note scale, he decided to go down a fifth from the original note.
Which gives you a fourth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So the
makes
idea-
sense because that's kind of that was already by default a note that you could get.
Yes.
You know, from your
his
starting
original
point. Yeah.
Another thing as well. So the issue at first, I'll just name those notes at first. So we had C, G, then we had D, then we had A, then we had E, then we had B. That was the original thing, and then he brought it down to the octave. So instead of going C, G, C, G, D, A, all of that stuff, it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that makes the major scale, which is where all of music comes from, which is crazy. So the thing is with this, though, I'm not playing this on an instrument that's tuned in the original tuning that he used. So the idea is his specific ratios are mathematically more perfect than what we use today. We use something called equal temperament, which we'll talk about later. But there is a video that we're going to link to of an instrument tuned in Pythagoras tuning, and then he actually I'm pretty sure in the video he plays something that's in our normal tuning. The reason why we went away from Pythagoras tuning is because as I go up an octave, they become more out of tune. So say, for instance, when you get up to the next octave of the major scale, the notes are like not doubles. So say, for instance, with a C note, if the C note's frequency is 1, then the octave's frequency is going to be 2. The next octave is going to be 4, and the next octave is going to be 8. It's always doubled. So we sort of made this thing called equal temperament. Not even that. We made something called just intonation so that all the octaves would be equal. And then there was an issue with that, and then we finally adjusted to equal temperament. And from this point on, we now have these tunings that you're talking about, the sweetened tunings. This is the acoustic guitar tuning. Grand pianos have their own fucking weird tuning. It's a mess. But the point being is that this dude, this Greek guy, 2,500 years ago, invented the major scale that we make music from. Or at least that's sort of what I had taken away from this. And the unfortunate thing is that's actually not the case. I saw another thing, and this is kind of what sparked me to want to do this video. And I'm sure other people have made this observation, but apparently 5,000 years ago, the Mesopotamians, so the Sumerians, I think it's the same thing. I think Sumerians were a type of Mesopotamians. They had, this is the oldest music theory that exists. They had a horn that played the Lydian scale.
Wow, really?
It was 2,500 years before Pythagoras, and it's not like Pythagoras that we know of looked at this and then made his thing. It wasn't passed down. So the Mesopotamians, in a way, came to the same conclusion that Pythagoras came to. So say, for instance, this is the major scale, C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1, right? The Lydian scale is the same thing, 1, 2, 3, but instead of 4, we move up to the sharp 4, so... And also, too, the Lydian scale is a mode of the major scale. You could get it by, starting on the 4th note of the major scale. So it's like, why is that the case? Did he invent music theory, or is this something that we, specifically want to hear evolutionarily speaking? So that completely messes up everything to do with it, because the way that they found this was on a cuneiform tablet, but it's the oldest music theory, 5,000 years ago.
Well, the interesting thing about the Lydian scale is that it's got no bad notes when it's played over its chord, right? So if you take C, and everybody knows that C's all the white keys, but if we're talking about C Lydian, your F becomes F sharp. So, and in the school of jazz, at least, if you're talking about writing melodies or soloing over chords, you never want to have a note that's a semitone above one of the notes in your chord. So if my chord is C, E, and G, and I play an F, which is a semitone above an E, it's got this weird kind of sort of rub to it that's generally not pleasant. But if I play an F sharp, also kind of angular sounding to me. But anyways, the way that they teach it is that is okay because it's a full tone as opposed to a semitone. It's a whole tone away from one of the notes of the chord in terms of being above it. So it's interesting that was discovered first for whatever reason, because in terms of like in terms of, you know, what people find to sound pleasing or not, the sort of prevailing knowledge, I guess, is that the Lydian scale is the most pleasing sounding scale over its chord, you know. But I don't know. I mean, I'm partial
there's
to
no
the
reference that I
natural
could
form.
find about how they figured out this Lydian scale, right? Because like I think a lot of people take for granted that it's like, oh, these are the notes that people sing, and it's like, well, why did we decide that? You know, because Eastern harmony is different. You know, I just think it's interesting that we decide to play these things and sing these things and make songs out of these things. Like literally everything we do is in relation to these things.
So let me ask you this: I have two questions. The first is like, okay, let's say there's like let's say they're doing construction across the street from your house or whatever, or they're pulling up the sewer drains. They got one of those big trucks that's just on all day. You know those trucks I'm talking about? They're just on. They're just rumbling all day, right? And sometimes, you know, you can almost hear like a fifth within the rumbling of that truck, you know, or maybe like an octave and a fifth or something in the rumbling of that truck. Like, does that have anything to do with these discoveries? Is that, like, when those things resonate in that way, are they quote unquote in tune pitches with, you know, the 440 tuning system that we have?
I have no fucking idea. One thing though that makes me think of is the music of the spheres. Now I wasn't going to talk about this, but it is kind of interesting. So Plato apparently really liked Pythagoras, but Pythagoras had this theory that the planets all like made harmony together. And I'm not sure if it's their movement, but they just like, say for instance, there was a tone, and I will butcher this because I didn't look into this, but it's in that Music of the Spheres video. The idea that I understood was that each planet had like a tone, and they like had intervals. So say for instance, you know, Earth and Mars together would make an interval, and it would be harmoniously pleasing, and we would listen to it and we would like it, but obviously we can't hear it.
Yeah.
So he like thought that
that'd be some low frequencies.
Yeah, well, he thought that every planet like sort of had a harmony together. So I guess in the same sense that you're saying with the truck, that everything has this note and harmony. I don't think everything is in this tuning instinctually. I just think that there is something to be said. I think we like, you know, the distance of a tone, like say for instance the distance of a whole step.
Yeah.
And the distance of a half step, you know, like how big those are, you know, any bigger would be a little bit too much if we had a scale that was comprised of more than that, and any smaller would be like too, you know, dissonant. But it's just bizarre to think that some math dude figured this out, but it's not really him. But he kind of, you know, maybe made it a little bit more, he allowed us to get it to the point where now we have equal temperament, you know.
Right.
And I guarantee you, like 1,000 years from now, we'll have something else. You know,
so how does equal temperament work?
The way that equal temperament works, from my understanding, so what the issue with just intonation, which is what they did to fix the Plato tuning, in the one video about, the Pythagorean tuning, in one video about the Pythagorean tuning, he does actually play some stuff and talk about the problems with it. So say for instance, when I play an octave together, that sounds good. With the Pythagorean tuning, it wouldn't. This one would be, I think, a little bit sharp or something like that. And then when I get up to the next octave, next one's going to be a little bit more sharp. So I can't really write melodies and chords and stuff like that
Mhm.
So just intonation, I don't know how just intonation works, but that fixed that. The only problem with just intonation was if I wrote a song in C major, those notes would be fine. But say, for instance, if I were to, on that same instrument, try to play a song in G major, they wouldn't sound good, because in the key of G major, the C note will be different than in the key of C major, which is bizarre. And in the key of A major, the C note would be different. So you'd have to have like a different instrument for each
key.
tuning.
I see.
Yeah. So Equal Temperament, what they did was they averaged out the notes, I believe, and so that there's only one C note, there's only one D note, and they're all equally wrong, but they all equally work. That's why sometimes when you play a chord on your guitar, it just doesn't sound good, even if you're in tune, like perfectly in tune. It doesn't sound as good as I remember my teacher, Tony Zorzi at Humber, was talking about that. Like, oh, you want your thirds to be a little bit whatever. I can't remember if he said
A little bit
sharp or
flat. If your
Yeah.
major third is a little bit flat, it sounds better in terms of ringing, because there's these things called beats. I'm gonna get my guitar. Hold on a sec. I have something meaningful to add to this conversation.
There you go.
So there's these things called beats, and this is a rabbit hole, and this is not like Beats by Dre or drum beats. It's a different thing. This is a rabbit hole you can go down if you want, dear listener. Okay, so my guitar's still in tune somehow. So I'm playing 5th fret B string and open E, which should produce the same note. They have a slightly different tone to them because of this is an open string and this is a fretted string, and they're different thicknesses and stuff, but they're the same pitch. Now, if my E string's out of tune, we can hear that those notes are not in tune. But
Yes.
what you really notice once pointed out to you is that there's actually like a wowing happening between the strings, and there's a speed to that. So if I play this again, I don't know how clearly that's coming across the microphone, but you can hear wow, 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 wow.
Yeah.
Almost like a Leslie cabinet or like a tremolo on a thing, right?
Yeah.
So, the further out of tune they are, the faster the wowing is. It sounds horrible. I'm sorry I'm subjecting you guys to this. But as you get closer in tune, and these are called beats, by the way, the speed at which the wowing is happening. Now we can hear wow, 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 wow. And if I go a little closer, wow, wow, wow.
Slows down, yeah.
And now it's almost unnoticeable. There's a very, very, very slow wow, like super slow, right? But
Yeah.
anyways, that's how you that's one of the ways that you can determine that notes are in tune with each other. So what happens though is when you play like a D chord, like you're saying, for example, you do hear a little bit of that wowing happening. But if you detune, if you flatten the third note of the chord, which in this case is our high F sharp, now you get a more quote unquote pleasing. There's none of that wowing happening.
Yeah.
But if I bring it back in tune, now this is in tune according to my Peterson. There's actually a little sort of instability between those two notes. It's hard to describe exactly, but it's almost similar to that wowing. So, but in the context of a track, this works, but in solo, and this is probably why some of these guitar players, see how much cleaner that sounds?
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden it just rings like so true. I bet you that's why some of these guitar players are messing around with sweetened tunings, but inside of a track with other instruments that are playing, it just sounds like mud to me. So I've really gone down
every other instrument was on the same page.
Right, yeah.
That would take a lot of work. I find it so interesting that we can just instinctually know these things and pick them up. You know, like why do we know what into like evolutionary speaking? Like,
well, okay. Well, let me throw this second thing at you. What about the Overtone series?
So, interesting thing about the Overtone series is that horn that I was talking about, the Mesopotamian fucking horn. It played the Overtone series.
Okay, can you explain what the Overtone series is? Because a lot of people aren't going to know what this is.
I actually don't know. I just know it's pretty much the Lydian scale with extra shit on top.
So, okay, here's the way that I think it's similar to what you were talking about the fifths, but I'm going to just Google it just to be sure. Hold on.
So, isn't it crazy though? 5,000 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Like they knew the Overtone series, but they didn't. Maybe they knew what it was. You know what I mean? I have no idea. I remember I learned about the Overtone series when I was at Humber, and I was like, I will never fucking need this, and I never have until right now.
Right, but this is this is like, okay. So I'm just sort of looking this up. This is similar to what you were talking about the harmonics of a string. So, half length of a string is an octave higher. A third length of a string is a fifth above that octave. A quarter length of the string is a fourth above that octave. So what you end up with is this. If you got your fundamental as low C, you get an octave above. Then you get a fifth above that. Then you get a fourth above that, which is another octave. Then you get a major third, a minor third. So now we've completed a triad. That's like a major chord. And then you start getting some weird stuff. And let me just see if I'm getting this right. It gets into some weird stuff here. Sub minor third. Right, and then you know, B flat gets in there, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A flat ends up in there. Anyways, it gets real crunchy after that, but this is sort of as you continue to divide that string, you get these other notes.
Also, and once again, I was not listening at Humber when they were teaching this because I just decided it was not useful. If I understood correctly, also too, when you play a note, doesn't every note have those harmonics in it in relation to the note?
Yeah, depending on how the instrument is, I think resonating. But this is a little bit beyond my expertise. But yes, yeah. Each note has these quote unquote overtones. You know, sort of playing with that note, even though you sort of think you're only playing the one note. There's actually a series of harmonics that are happening on top of it that give it that full range sound. So it's a little bit like, you know, like vocally, if I plug my nose, I lose some of those overtones, and if I let that go, it brings those back, and now there's a brightness, and it sounds full range and natural to me, even though I'm talking one note. Though. What's that?
How did the Mesopotamians figure that shit out?
I don't know. They were way smarter than we are.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not around anymore, so we weren't that smart.
Yeah.
But, yeah. No. That is my presentation, though. That is the conclusion that I came to. Is that I have no idea whether or not it was invented or whether or not it's instinctual. It's probably a bit of both, and that's fucked up.
Yeah, I just wonder if that Overtone series has bearing on, you know, where the where the equal temperament tuning is coming from and where the like the rest of the notes of the major scale are coming from. But
I know that equal temperament was a development from just intonation. I'm pretty sure it was to fix so that one instrument could play in every key.
mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that the overtone series is more to do with the Pythagorean tuning.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It would be interesting to hear music that is written specifically for these tunings.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be interesting to hear music that was written in different tunings. But for some reason, this is what we stick to, equal temperament.
Yeah, right on.
But I think that shit is crazy. And I'm never going to think about it past this. Never want to do any further research. And I'm sure somebody's made this connection between the Mesopotamians and Pythagoras. But I just thought it was pretty fucking neat.
Yeah, no, it is super interesting. And I mean, is there any value in deviating from the major scale or from A being 440?
Okay, well, that's one thing. Have you ever heard about these people that think that A should be 434 or something? What was it again? A should be...
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking?
But I've heard, different... there's different possible tunings for A, like even on any standard tuner that you buy, you can set what A is. Is it 440 or do you want it to be 441 or 442, right?
There's people, I can't remember, and okay, many countries and organizations follow the French standard in 1860s of 435. So apparently people have changed this.
Mm-hmm.
There's shortened pitch, so that guy uses 430. Apparently A440 came from just intonation, which would have come from Pythagoras' tuning. But I know that there are people, they're usually older guys who swear by a different tuning. It's like flatter, where all the notes are slightly lower and they're like, this just sounds better. But I think that's full of shit. If everything is just 5 cents flatter, you know what I mean? Like, it would sound different, but I don't think that we would pick up on it and be like, wow, this record. That being said, if you did release a record that was all 5 cents flat, maybe on a subconscious level, people would be like, there's something different about this record. You know what I mean?
There's a lot, that happens a lot with tape, right?
Sure.
Records that were made to tape, they can, depending on the playback speed or whatever of the tape machine as it was being, bounced down to 2-track, you'll have a lot of records that are like slightly sharp, or whatever, of which is super annoying when you're trying to learn the songs.
Yeah.
But I mean,
or
other than that,
somebody tries to get around the algorithm. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true. People
keys.
still do that. Yeah, that's right. When you're posting it to YouTube, just put it up a tone or whatever.
It doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't work anymore. And there's like, I've heard stories where I think it was a Police song where they just sped it up after the fact. Everything had been recorded and done, and they were just like, I think this song would sound better a couple beats quicker, so they just sped it up. So the whole thing's sharp, but it's like, it still sounds great, So I think there is some amount of leeway there in terms of like, I don't know if you listen to a record that's slightly detuned and immediately realize that it is.
It would be interesting though to listen to a record that's maybe 20 or 30, everything is 20 or 30 cents lower. But yeah, I don't think, like, it's all about the relationships between each other. The more obvious thing would be, if you listen to a record that was written with Pythagoras tuning or just intonation or some other tuning system.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. But I'm not going to do that. So.
Probably be pretty painful. I'm imagining it doesn't sound good.
That's fucked though.
Yeah.
Why is that painful?
Well, we're conditioned to.
We're conditioned, yeah.
Especially with us being musicians, like, what in tune, quote unquote, in tune sounds like has been drilled into our brains and ears for 30 years. Like, it's going to be tough to listen to. But I mean, there's also value in detuning stuff, from a mix perspective too, right? Like, if you want to stereoize something,
Sure.
like there's an old trick with vocals where you copy the vocal twice. You got your vocal track up the middle. You copy it twice, put one to the left side, one to the right side. So now you got 3. You got your center and your copy on the left, your copy on the right. And in order to get them to sound meaningfully different from each other, because if they're just the same, you're not going to notice anything except it's going to sound louder. But if you detune the left side by 10 cents or whatever, and detune the right side up by 10 cents, then you all of a sudden you get this stereo
They do that with
effect
synths as well.
Pardon me?
They do that with synths as well.
Yeah.
There's a few effects in Guitar Rig that have like presets for that.
Yeah. And it's actually like a really useful effect, and it's bizarre, but it's like, because I think you come at music making and record making with like everything needs to be 100% in tune, and it's actually the most boring thing in the world when everything is exactly 100% in tune.
Something it sounds fishy when it sounds fake.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually, and that that's on like a micro level, just doing like a stereo effect, but we actually need out of tuneness as listeners to stay engaged with a record, which is a really weird thing to say. Like that's a very counterintuitive thing to say, and like most things need to be in tune, but that approach into a note that a singer does, that slide in, that builds tension, that sort of gets comes back to the old tension and release.
Well, actually, I have
a theory about music.
Say, for instance, blues licks.
Yeah.
John Mayer was talking about this, like when old blues singers would sing stuff, they're not singing perfectly in tune now. So like what I just played there, that wasn't in tune. That wasn't, and it wasn't. It was. You know what I mean? That kind of sounds shitty. Or
right.
That.
Yeah.
Like that's not. Is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, tuning. Yeah, not being perfect. It is an interesting thing. That's called microtonal bending on guitar, which sounds super bluesy and awesome.
Yeah, and you can. Right, it does sound awesome, and this. Like music is so boring without that, right? But if you ride it, and that's where some of that artistry and feel just comes in. But like if you ride that line just right, and usually it involves on like landing on an in tune note and approaching it with an out of tune note is sort of the formula there. But like, if you do it wrong, it just sounds out of tune. But if you do it right, it sounds
ones.
Yeah.
Certain ones you can get away with, like thirds you can play with and fifths, but the root you can't. You gotta land. Like in terms of like landing it, like you said, you gotta land on the root. But I feel like you can land on a slightly out of tune third or fifth. What was I gonna say? Oh gosh, I had a thing and I've lost it. It was about microtonal stuff. Oh, yes. One thing that I find that's interesting that singers don't obsess about, everybody obsesses about the tone of their voice. Like, I want my voice to sound strong, or like, I want my voice to be whispery. But the tuning is not something that people obsess about. Like, I don't see a lot of singers who take, or I haven't seen like singing teachers on YouTube who talk about like, this is how you work on your tuning. Here's a chord. Try to sing this note and like nail it. I still struggle with that as well too. If you play a note for me and I sing it, I don't think it's gonna be like dead the same.
It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to teach.
Amazing.
But it comes and goes.
When I hear your Music Monday on Instagram. Music Monday
Twitch.
On your Twitch channel.
Twitch.tv/OurMusic. Now streaming Thursday nights as well as Mondays at noon. Yes.
It's like it doesn't sound auto-tuned in the sense of like the plug-in auto-tune where it's like, yeah, there's auto-tune on that. It sounds like it's been professionally tuned, you know what I mean? Like I don't hear notes where I'm like, oh yeah, this is live, you know? And some singers are like that. Some singers are not.
Some singers, man, I gotta say, like, working with like a couple names that come to mind, but there's a every singer I'm so blessed to work with so many great singers, you know. But like Max Shepard,
yes,
working with him on the Christmas record, like he can hear everything, man. His ears are way faster than mine. And like he, you know, if we're going on one of his vocals, you know, he'll point out stuff. He'll be like, yeah, that word of that was flat. You know, it's like, okay. And I go in there, it's like, sure enough, it is, and we fix it. Yep. Or we don't because it doesn't sound as vibey. But like, you know,
yes.
Or like, I remember doing the last group of tunes I did for Dylan Wallace. Him coming in after I'd edited the vocals, and he had. Like, and I feel like I'm pretty meticulous when I edit vocals in terms of trying to get everything in tune without wrecking the vibe of it. Here we go again with saying, you know, out of tune stuff has a certain vibe. But, you know, he came in and he was like, yeah, here. And sure enough, like they were all, he's like, this is flat, this is sharp. I was like, yes, it is. Okay. Yeah, let's fix that.
Yeah.
You know, and Alessia Cole was another one who was really
she's very talented as well.
Cognizant of pitch. But I mean, I think like as a singer, especially with this, maybe this is sad to say, but like with the software, I don't think it's sad to say, but maybe some people will think this, but with the software that exists, pitch is not really that much of a problem. Recording, it's one of the easier things to fix. And so I guess the reason I'm saying this is like, if you're going into a session as a singer, your just your energy and your commitment to the lyric and like, you know, the story that you're telling and the tone of your voice and like how you're choosing to sing those notes and your dynamics and like that stuff, you can't change any of that. Pronunciation's another big one too.
Harder to teach, man.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Pronunciation's a really big one too, and like having the right emphasis on the right syllable, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. That stuff you can't fix. You got to sing that in again. If you sung the shit out of that line and it was, you know, a few cents flat, I can fix it if we want. That's easy to do. So in a way, like I don't think hyper analyzing pitch is really as important as
after the fact. But if I had a practice routine as a singer, I once again, I'm not a singer. Yeah. But I feel like that would be a part of my practice routine.
I mean, like if you're always singing out of tune, then you know you need to figure that out. But like I just mean like, you know, being super worried about pitch in this day and age doesn't seem to matter as much, at least in the recording studio. But it's also interesting to hear people sing who've like grown up in the world of autotune. And I would almost count myself in this group, but like just the singers who their notes are so pin straight in terms of pitch, and they can step through like, you know, scales and do licks and stuff, and it's never going to sound as blocky as T-Pain autotune, but it's tight because they've been listening to you know, these singers that have, you know, who are obviously already amazing singers, but have that aid of software pitch correction. So people are coming up listening to music and their favorite singers sound like that. They can do runs that are so tight. And I really can't do runs that are that tight, but you know, they come up learning that and you know, I'm opening up their vocal track in the session. I'm like, I don't need to do anything with this. Like, this is already.
Well, it's funny when you listen to like an old Motown recording, and like, the tuning is not like perfect.
No.
And it's true. Like,
it's all over the place.
Go listen to that. Like, ugh.
But the vibe and the intensity.
Yeah.
And the emotion
Character.
is like off the chain. And like, I don't know if you've ever heard those things where like people auto tune the Beatles and stuff to like make everything perfectly in, and it just sounds ridiculous, obviously, because the record
really?
wasn't. Well, I mean,
They're
they're
doing it as
taking.
a joke, right?
Yeah, of course. They're like, here, auto tune's so bad. Here's what. Do you think the Beatles didn't need it? But it is like a cool experiment to see what that does to, you know, a classic sounding recording where people were using their ears. People were using the beats that I was showing you earlier, where it's just like, yeah, this sounds out of tune because these notes are rubbing. Let's fix it. And just sort of feeling that out. Of course, they had tuners as well, but when we're talking about singing, you know, they're just doing it by ear, right? And it's a little bit out sometimes, and it worked for that era. But I think we're now in an era where you have less room to play around with being out. You know, you still need out of tune. Without out of tune, there is no in tune, but you have less real estate to play around with because everything's super high res recording. Everything's recorded right up close to the mic, so there's no real forgiveness with like a room or like a, you know, a reverb or something. But you can put reverb, you can put delay, you can put distortion, you can do things to sort of mess up the frequency content and the overtones to sort of make things hit a little bit softer, which is another sort of technique to make things sound more in tune. But I find it really interesting to think about and experiment with like that side of it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, tuning's important. That's the biggest thing. Like whether it's like, you know, not making a conscious effort to not be, you know, if you're a fucking Melodyne guy and making an effort not to like destroy the track by tuning everything.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the opposite of you're a singer or a guitarist, like myself included. Some of my bends, the tuning is not great, you know, needs work.
Yeah, but it's like how you approach that bend, because if you come into that bend, if you're bending the 2 to the 3 and you get to the major third right away, like it's not as interesting as if you sort of slowly get there. And Melodyne obviously is a big one, but like if you're using Melodyne or Antares or one of those softwares to do pitch correction, just really trying to rely on your ear and not looking at the pitch graph, because it doesn't always get it right. Like sometimes those softwares, they pull the vocal, they analyze the vocal, and they got it wrong. They said it was 3 cents flat, and it's actually not, or it just sounds good 3 cents flat. So just leave it.
Yeah.
And especially like the onsets and offsets of notes, if that's a word to describe what I'm trying to talk about. But like, you know, the middle of the note, I want that to be in tune. The surrounding stuff, I usually try to leave that alone, because that's where you're going to lose that human element.
See in Melodyne almost signs of a singer that maybe has like bad breath support or doesn't have almost the control to know where the pitch is. You see people that maybe you can into it or something.
Yeah, you can sort of see when a vocal part's kind of all over the place, like just the way that the lines move around. It is kind of evident. Yeah, but
yeah, that's interesting.
Happens to the best of us, man. Happens to the best of us.
Oh my god, fucking yeah. If you were to take a vocal take of mine and Melodyne it, you would have a lot of work, lots of work to do.
If it's a backup, I'll just slam it as hard as I can and turn it down. You know,
call it a day. Call it a day. Slap on the actual auto tune. It's funny that they lap auto tune and Melodyne together, because to me auto tune is like you slap it on and you have very limited control over like how much it does. It's just it does.
Yeah.
Whereas Melodyne, you put it on and then you have to be like, well, I can just nudge that.
Yeah, you can get real microscopic with it. I mean, Melodyne's got some functions where you just sort of select all the notes and just say, put them all, snap them all in tune, and whatever happens, happens. But that generally doesn't work out too well. You have to, there's programs that specialize in like dialing it in, however much, 50% in tune, and they'll just sort of nudge everything in. But really, the only way to get it, in my experience, to really come across sounding natural but also good, is to get right in there and just work on every note and make sure that the parts that need to be in tune are, and the parts that don't need to be in tune or need to be out of tune, stay that way. Try not to alter, especially if you got a great vocal performance. Really try not to do too much to it. But it is a very meticulous sort of thing. But yeah, with backups, whatever. Just not as much. No, you still have to be pretty meticulous with them, but you can hit them harder because they're going to sit back.
I feel like, it's like if anything sticks out, you're listening to the track and you're like, oh.
You're not going to notice the artifacts as much, but another thing I've been trying to do, we kind of just taking a turn into tuning vocals, but
Melodyne.
I've been trying not to trying not to solo. It's so hard to do without soloing sometimes, but like if you're tuning stacks of backgrounds, trying not to try to keep the track on in the background, because I've gone too far tuning stacks where they're there's four-part harmony or whatever, and they're all pinned straight in tune, and they sound amazing, and then you put them in the track and they don't make any sense. They sound like a synth. They sound like a synth keyboard. Yeah. And there's this is a grungy rock song. Why is there a Glee vocal on top?
Yeah. But also too, you're a guitar's not going to be perfectly tuned.
No,
just in the same way that you were saying, if you went through and by ear fixed each chord for the thirds and stuff like that, so that they were a little bit flat. It's like every instrument would have to do that.
Yeah.
All the backups would have to do that. If the bass played a third at any point for some reason.
Yeah, you just start losing the natural sort of vibe of the song. It just gets weird when you try to pick away at these small little tuning differentials. It does get really weird, or it can, but anyways, I don't know. Now I'm just rambling about tuning, but it's interesting stuff.
Would be ashamed of us.
Yeah.
Or whoever the Mesopotamian person was.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, that was a thought-provoking and
I just thought it was
interesting discussion. Yeah.
Historical discoveries with Michael Hebbs.
Yeah.
He needs a theme song.
There you go. Well, let's wrap us up right there, as we are getting on here. If you want to contact the podcast, like we said at the beginning, musicguypodcast@gmail.com. Find us on social media at Alro Music, at Bruno the Meek. What else was I going to say? I had something earlier.
What's the song of the week?
Oh, I don't know yet. I got to put that in. I got to put that in after the fact. But
song of the week is...
If you want to send us music to play, please do for the song of the week. And, of course, send in your questions. And we love you. Thanks for listening. See you guys next week. Bye for now.
Want to see? Okay, beauty. I will send you this tonight.